and sometimes it takes a few minutes for it to go into both, but usually it goes instantly on YouTube, I think, and it takes a 30-second delay or something like that to go into Facebook, and then we'll have some people who can come in here and chat with us today. Dylan is on the road and on the way to a wedding he is shooting, and Kate from Down Under was waking up early this week to tune into our show. She's like, "Are you still doing the show?" And I was like, "You know what? We could totally just throw something together. Let's get on." And I asked if she had any ideas, and she mentioned talking about collaborations as an SEO tactic, basically. And she has a really cool story or example that she could show, and how would you just maybe have a little bit of a conversation around how to think about in-person networking as a way to build local relevance, authority, build relationships, and prove it all online in a way that Google can use to really understand more about your brand and rank you for some of these terms and locations. And there's so many positive things that can happen through this sort of marketing. And we'll talk a little bit about how to tie that back into SEO. And if anyone has any questions or ideas or examples, definitely drop them in the chat. If anyone's here and just wants to say, hey, say hello in the chat and make sure that's working. And yeah, so Kate, let's jump right in. Tell me about some of the things that you've done so far as collaborating with others and featuring that on your website.
Sure. One example. So I was initially a family photographer in a area outside of Melbourne, Australia, called the Dandenongs, and we get a lot of local visitors, and pre-COVID, a lot of international tourists coming here. Mm-hmm. And in some of my lulls, when I wasn't so busy with family work, I wanted to feature some of my favorite local businesses. Yeah. And it was a way to just go out, take images, try out when I was first learning lighting, practice without the risk.
Yeah.
And one that I did that's been quite successful in driving traffic to my site, and keeping in mind the population here in Australia is 25 million. Okay. So it's a much smaller market than
in the whole country is 25 million?
Yeah, 25. And I think Melbourne's 7 million.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of the population's in these 4 or 5 cities around the coast. Pretty much all of it, I guess. Yeah.
If you look at the 4 or 5 biggest cities, it's 90% of the population, but it's a much smaller market than the US.
You know what? I have not made it to Australia in my life, and it's on my bucket list since I was 6 years old. I'm an animal lover, and so all of my favorite animals as a kid were all in Australia. I'm I've got to make it to Australia one day.
Well, one of the best known sanctuaries for Australian wildlife is half an hour for me, and I have a membership there. So you have to come.
Didn't you have the exclusive rights to photograph there or something too?
Or is that not at the sanctuary, but I've got exclusive rights for the national park and quite a few of the gardens.
Definitely going to get in touch with you if I end up making it down there. It's so funny because I'm outside here. It is in the high 90s Fahrenheit, and I was sweating. I just walked through the door, and it's so. And you're wearing your hoodie. It's cold there. I always. It's so funny thinking about how Australia is the opposite in so many ways.
I know, right? I see these photography competitions, and they're the theme is summer.
Yeah.
And I'm it's winter here. We're always at the opposite, and obviously our Christmas is not snow and Thanksgiving and turkey.
Trip to the beach.
Exactly. Yeah. It's barbecues on the beach.
That's funny.
But yes, I have a spare room, Corey. I love playing the part of the local tour guide. So you must, if you ever come down this way,
it's gonna happen one day.
I've got you sorted.
Okay, so let's look at I'm going to share my screen because I want to show the one for the bakery here, and then just kind of walk us through the story of, first of all, how did it happen? What I know you kind of mentioned that you were trying to get out and do practice during COVID and kind of network and just get to know people and take photos and everything. But what kind of communication did you have with the owner, and what was your pitch to them, or your what did you say to them, and then how did it all go down after that?
Yeah, so it's quite the story. So this was a bakery that was in one location, and I used to go with my daughter quite often. Then they were upgrading to a much larger location, probably 1.5 kilometers. So that's like 2 and a bit miles further away. And this bakery have like no online presence. Like they're the sort of company that haven't been on their Instagram or their Facebook for like 2 years. They have no website, nothing. So when I saw that they were taking over this bigger site, I thought, here's a chance, because it's reasonably well known. People will go to the old site, like the old location. It's going to be vacant. They're going to want to know where's the new location. And the owners have no tech, no ability, no SEO. So maybe I can get that traffic. So I did reach out to them as they were getting to the end of like the rebuild, but I never heard from them. Like I said, hopeless with technology.
Yeah.
So on their opening day, I literally just turned up with my cameras.
Okay.
And I walked up to the owner, and I mean, I knew her by name because I'd sort of been a frequent flyer at the original store. And I just said, congratulations, how exciting. I just would love to take some photos of opening day. I'll share them, as a blog, and I'll send them through to you for you to use for your social media and your website, which I knew they pretty much didn't have.
Yep.
And she's like, oh, that sounds great. Like, photograph whatever you like. Like, it was super busy. It was packed. And this is how bad their tech was. I said, all right, what's the email that I can send the gallery to? Her response was, we don't have an email address.
Wow.
I was like, what the, like, you're running, like, you're employing, there was like 20 staff there, this quite big freestanding, but how do you run a business without an email? Anyway, somebody that worked there came up with like a personal email address that I could send the photos to. So I probably spent, I don't know, an hour with my cameras, just walking around. I was chatting to other customers. I ordered some cake and sat and just sort of took it all in. And then went home, edited, created the blog post, sent the images through to them. And I shared it in a lot of local groups in the area where I live, saying, hey, wow, like you can see actually, you've just gone past, I've got a little logo which says supporting local business.
Yeah.
So I sort of did a big shout out in local groups of, they're finally open. This is the new location, phone number, address, because like they'd done no pre-media at all, about the fact that they were moving. So I got a lot of initial hits on my website in that first week, like a couple of thousand, which for a small area was...
I mean, that's brilliant. Like I wish more people kind of got that. If you can, I mean, this is a little bit, this starts to blur the lines of journalism, right? Like it's local journalism where you're going out, and especially on an opening like that in a business that's like, the community knows, but they're not doing much with their online marketing or whatever. You writing a piece about it is, like you said, they didn't make any big announcements. This is sort of the announcement for them, right? You're reporting on it. And so, which is kind of cool. But like that, there's so many things like that might not be that exact kind of thing with an opening, but there's a lot of things that local businesses do that are newsworthy, but they're like, the news is it can get so, I don't know about in Australia and in the United States, it's just toxic to me. Like I would never sit down and watch the news, right? But
I've actually stopped watching it because as an aside, I was a police officer for 15 years. I've just recently been diagnosed with PTSD, and I've stopped watching it because it's too triggering.
But I mean, like this kind of thing, people want to see the things that are happening locally in their community. They want to stay updated on things like this. And photographers have such a unique ability with our cameras and our ability to kind of document stories and things like that. If you're willing to publish that on your site, you can really become known in an area as the person who is like highlighting different things to do, different things that you might want to know about. Not that that's the right move for every photographer, and there may be different levels of it. Maybe you just do this one time and that's still worth it. But there's others who that might be how they blog, right? Maybe instead of blogging mostly client work, you're blogging mostly community things that you're photographing. It kind of depends on what type of photography you're doing, but there's so many opportunities there.
And that's certainly one of my blog pillars is
Yep.
like the local attractions, local businesses, local playgrounds.
If I is there a way for me to get into like an archive of all the local stuff like that?
You probably can search, but like if you just click on blog, the last couple are all like, so this garden, the top one that just opened a week
Hmm.
ago, and it's a big deal. It won like an international competition in London, and they've reproduced it here.
Oh, wow.
So this was another one where I've shared it in local groups, and
Yeah.
then people are tagging their friends, going, "We've got to go and check this out. Like, let's put this on our to-do list."
What kind of local groups are you in? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Reddit? Are they on, where are you? Like what platforms are you?
Mainly Facebook.
Yeah.
So like we've got one that's called the Hills and the Dandenongs, which I think is like 25,000 people.
Hmm.
Yeah, this one I did just the other week. I'd done an extended family session with 22 people, including 13 children.
Hmm.
So I was a bit fried afterwards. And I thought, it's winter solstice week here. I'm just going to jump in my car and go and photograph the shop windows.
Right.
And then I went home, quick edit, blog, and then I backlinked to, I think it was 17 businesses.
Uh-huh.
And I sent that gallery out and the blog link that night to all the businesses and said, I loved looking in your shop windows. Feel free to download and share these images.
What was the response to that?
Quite a few of them like messaged me back and said, oh, thank you. Like, we love your work. Going to keep you in mind. They shared it on socials. Wow. One of them is actually on a tourism board, and she wants to now meet about collaborations and using my imagery for their website, which has quite a high DA.
Yeah.
So I am finding that, by going out and doing this stuff and just making almost like organic connections, it's paying off. And like the bakery thing is driving still quite a bit of traffic to my site. I think it's like 10% of my organic views come from that bakery page. And that's like a bit over a year since it opened. And I knew too, well, my thought was this will show Google my local knowledge and authority, because I'm giving the updated hours, location, because the business didn't even go in and update any of that. So
yeah, and if you think about it, it's proving that you are in this location, right? Like, because if you weren't, I mean, that doesn't 100% prove it, but it gives a much stronger clue to Google that your business, your entity, you as an author are actually located in the same area as this bakery. And so, at least that's what, it can be that way. Google can tell if you're blogging about something that's like outside of where you are. But whenever you make those bonds kind of stronger on the knowledge graph that Google keeps, it really can help them to see you as a local entity that is synonymous with the name of the location that you're trying to rank for.
Like, I like to say I'm, the tour guide, that I know what's happening in this area.
Yeah.
And a few weeks after I posted this bakery blog post, it was maybe a week or two actually, I had a local small business owner reach out to me, and she said, I need personal branding photos. And that's her at the bottom of the screen in the green. She's like, I need branding photos. I want some outdoors, which I know is your thing, but I also want some in a cafe. And that bakery looks amazing. Do you think we could hire it for my photo shoot? Yeah. And I said, look, I've now got this relationship. Let me go and just chat to them. So I went in to buy some cake, and I said, hey, Carolyn, like, people are loving, you're getting so much traffic. I gave her the stats. I said, in fact, someone wants to do a branding photo shoot. So is that cool if we come in and do that? I'll obviously backlink and tag you in all the socials for that. And she was like, yeah, sure. Yep. So that established trust with that client, that they didn't have to pay for a location. I had the relationship and I could leverage it for that job.
Yeah.
And interestingly, that client's sister-in-law is one of the top boho baby type photographers in the city. But she wanted my style based off that blog post. So I got a job that was, I think it was $900 maybe, directly from that one blog post.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm sure there's like so many connections that you're not even able to track. That's one of the things that's hard about something like this, is that you really are, I think if you're doing this right, and you definitely are, you're putting goodwill out into the, into the universe. I don't know if they don't want to get like woo woo about it, but like the idea of,
Oh no, I'm an ex-cop. I am a believer in the karma train, Corey.
yeah, there you go. But I mean, even just practically speaking, whenever you do things for other people without a whole lot of expectation, like you're doing this because you want to do it, there's
Yep.
so much reciprocity there. There's like people want to give back to people who do things like that for them. You build trust, you build a real relationship, and it almost always leads to opportunities. I have so many things have happened for me in that way, where it's just like reach out, do something because, hey, I can do it. It's funny today. My kids and I started collecting Pokemon cards recently, and I play the game. Anyway, I went to this card shop, and this guy, I'm like, I can't even find you. When I looked in like my city card shops, and you're like nowhere to be found. I can't even actually get to your like Google business listing to see your hours. It says you're temporarily closed. He like has no idea about any of this. I'm like,
Yeah.
look, I'll help you. Just let me set this up for you, whatever. And I'm not even asking for, I'm not telling him to give me free cards. I'm not telling him to pay me. I'm just like, look, I come here all the time because I think you give good deals and I enjoy buying stuff from you. Let me help you with this. And I know when I do that, even though this isn't the reason I'm doing it, I know that at some point in the future, I'm going to need something, a card, whatever that he has. He's going to want to give it to me, or we'll build a relationship there where it's just like, help other people do the things that you do well, and help them in a way that can actually promote their business, promote their notoriety, like get them out into the community. Like that sort of marketing that you're doing for them, that pays back a lot for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And, I've now got people that when I introduce myself, or they'll see me with my camera and they're like, "Are you Kate?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like, "Oh my goodness, I saw this, blog post that you shared in such and such a group. And I took my kids, I took my granddaughter, I went there with my girlfriends, like we know who you are." And it's actually really nice to get that recognition.
Yeah.
And that brand awareness. I just met a local mum recently. We've got a very famous tourist steam train that goes just 4 houses from me, almost at the back of my house. And they recently had 2 carriages derail, and I'd seen it in like the local community, Facebook group. Everyone was like, "Ooh, like what's going to happen? The trains come off the tracks." So I went up with my son. No, it was my daughter. And there was another mum there, and I actually recognized her because a competitor who undercuts, shall I say, had photographed her. And I said, "Oh, you're Kate. Like, I've been following you. I love your small business posts." So it has been something that people just talk to me about when they see me, and they're like, "What's going to be next? What's your next favorite business that you're going to go to?"
Yeah.
So
that's
it is
cool that you're like actually building a following of people who really want to hear from you because they enjoy seeing the way that you feature those places. Do you ever think about, I mean, there are certainly photographers out there who this is the type of photography they do. And, for for businesses who want to do their marketing and need like things like that. And I would imagine that some of them might say, don't tell people to go do this stuff for free because we're trying to charge them for it. I know that's one thing to think about. But do you ever think about like in your, as you kind of do this more and more, do you think there's an opportunity to reach out to businesses and say, "Hey, would you like me to feature you? This is what it usually looks like when I feature a business." And then you have some sort of package or price where you do that?
Well, I'm actually
What's up, Dylan?
Hey, Dylan. I am actually pivoting more into headshots and personal branding photography. My husband and I separated last July, and from September to January, I worked every weekend doing family shoots. And the bulk of my family work was extended families. So it really had to be weekends. So I am in the midst of moving the split so I can do more weekday work. And I was like, weekday work has to be newborns or business.
Yep.
And newborns are really hard and it's really saturated. So let's try business. So I am now getting paid clients, and it is that balance between freebies, but also charging people.
Yeah.
And that's why I liked the one that I did the other week of the windows after dark,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not something that anyone is ever going to pay for.
Right.
But
And they're not giving you any direction. They're not like, it's not a thing where you're getting an assignment. You're just doing whatever you want. It's artistic for you. It's experimental for you. It's,
it's practice.
Exactly.
It's a chance to try new things. I mean, I was like, oh, I've got headlights in glass windows.
Mm-hmm.
And I just stood there and played with that. So it was just personally really satisfying. But by sending out, I think the most photos that I had of any single business in the gallery was like 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't a whole lot, but it was a little taster of what I do.
Yeah.
And got me in front of them in a way that, if they are thinking about branding or staff headshots,
yep,
they now know that I'm here and that I blast everything out on my socials and in the local groups. So it is that balance. And I also sometimes will do community events, either at a reduced rate or free. And I have just actually this last week put a non-disclosure clause in my contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that if I do a freebie or a reduced rate, that it can't be disclosed by the client.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to do. Would it stand up legally in court if someone said? Probably not.
Right. It's more about, you're just putting that there to kind of let them be aware that you would rather them not tell people. It's not like you're advertising it for free.
That's obviously then, and I say to them when I'm shooting, look, I do also charge people for this, so please don't let it be known that this one was a freebie.
It's interesting. I feel like as long as you're pursuing the ones that there's value in it for you either way, like you're doing this because you want to, you're doing this because you know that you're building an audience who wants to follow these kinds of things. You have an audience you're trying to reach for your photography services that probably would like to read this kind of thing. So there's value that you're building into kind of the audience building part of it, the marketing part of it for your brand. I really don't think there's anything wrong. I do that kind of stuff all the time. Like if I can find a way to give something away for free that I know is, again, like we just talked about earlier, putting goodwill out there, getting some reciprocity in the future, but also it just like, it makes me feel good to know that I'm doing something that I'm interested in, that I'm like, this is how I contribute to my community or that I participate in my community. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I feel like the people who do argue about, don't do this kind of stuff for free. I think that the types of businesses that want to hire someone, they're going to usually have some direction that they want to give that is like, hey, we need this specific thing for this marketing campaign, or we need like you said, staff headshots, or they need something where they need to schedule it at a certain time. And those kinds of things, obviously, you're not going to want to do for free. Like that's the client needs this. And there's always going to be people who need that kind of thing. It's not like you're out there trying to take all of those opportunities. You couldn't ever keep up with all of the work doing it for free, obviously.
No.
But
when I'm there, if I'm there just with my camera taking these they're almost snapshots, but obviously I've got the good camera, I've got the editing skill, I can see light. I always talk to them about what more I can do. So I say, I have mobile studio lights. I can do this, I can do that. I've got exclusive access to these premier locations. So it's kind of a chance to also pitch what I do to them whilst I'm there hanging out in their shop or in their business. And another angle on it, which I think is, because obviously like we're nearly all quiet at the moment. Like the economy is, so we're all got reduced work at the moment. So I think, just going and doing this sort of stuff is a chance to get fresh content for your socials and build that, reputation and authority so that when we come out of this economic dip, you're on the front foot.
Yeah.
But another way to do it is the barter economy. So I recently, actually I've done it twice now, but I have got a friend who is a police officer and her husband is a recently qualified electrician. Oh, my computer's just gone. And I'd done family photos for them previously, and I waived my bottom level package in exchange for him putting more PowerPoints in my office because I needed to be able to charge all my equipment. And then he reached out to me a few months ago and he said, I'm now finished my official, like my apprenticeship. I'm setting up my own website, my own business.
Mm-hmm.
I need headshots and branding.
Yep.
Do you need any electrical work done? So I said, yeah, sure. And I thought about what I needed. So he came here and did that. And I just did a branding session literally in my house and my yard. I didn't have to even get in the car and leave home.
Yeah.
And I got free electrical work.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool too.
Lots of opportunities to exchange as well. So I've been thinking about this next week, there's a social media content creator.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to pick her brain. And I messaged her. She actually contacted me because she was putting out a newsletter and she'd found through Google image search a photo of one of the exclusive locations I have. It was like a landscape image from a blog post on that spot. And she said, I want to use your image in this real estate newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you credit. Is that okay? I said, yeah, absolutely. Like, let me send you the high res file and I'll send you some others from the same location.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit like that wedding vendor thing. You know, when they ask, you give a little bit. So we had a few messages backwards and forwards. She let me know when the newsletter went out. They were putting it on her socials, the real estate socials. And then I messaged her last week and said, I'd really love to pick your brain about social media strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some new lighting equipment coming. So do you want to come over when it's all here? I'll do some fun branding shots of you. We'll get some cake and coffee. We'll just talk business.
Yeah.
So solidifying that. So she initially contacted me about a photo, but now potentially that's going to be a collaboration.
Right.
And she's very connected in our community. Obviously, she's working with other businesses. So next time those real estate agents need headshots, I know who she'll be recommending.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? Okay, this is something I was thinking about earlier. When I was first saying the intro here, we talked about how you might use like this sort of in-person networking, marketing. It's good. It's good for marketing in general, but how does it tie back into SEO? I think that's one of the things I'm so interested in with your site and what you've done with all those blog posts we looked through earlier. It's when I tell people about this, but it's always so good to see an example, because basically what you're doing, that like the thing you just said, I think a lot of people will be able to build some relationships where they like do some exchange, or like they become friends with someone, or they like, earlier when I was talking about the guy at the card shop, I got his number, he got mine. We talked about what we might do in the future or whatever. But like, there's such a difference whenever you blog it and prove it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like whenever you like take that thing that you did and you showcase it as part of, to me, that's when people are asking about blogging, like what should I blog? Blogging, that word is it feels so old at this point. Like a lot of people are just putting a lot of that stuff on social media. Like you might just put this stuff on Instagram stories if you were doing what most people are doing these days, I think, where having something like
I do that too. So it's like you take the one thing and you use it. I mean, I've just this week started putting my face on reels.
Yeah.
Scary. But, I take this stuff and I use it, excuse me, on my website, on the blogs. I'm now using it on LinkedIn. So like, the electrician, for example, share that blog post on LinkedIn, stories, reels, posts.
Right.
So you can leverage.
But having the website piece is I feel like it's so missing for so many people. And they're like, well, how do I put that on my website? And it can be a little bit difficult. Like at least the social media platforms kind of force you into a format, they get you to do it a certain way. Whereas on your blog, you can kind of do whatever you want. And I really like the way that you have kind of ended up with, heavy photo, it's photo heavy. Like you definitely see a visual story. If you scroll this, it's simple. These like don't even have any headings. It's not like, there's nothing complicated.
Corey, let me tell you, this particular post, because like it was school holidays here the last 2 weeks, and my kids are 4 and 7, and it's been a bit mental. I actually used ChatGPT to create this one because I was like, I just want to get the images out. Like it's not a cornerstone piece. So I did just plug it in.
Exactly. But it's okay. It's okay for every piece. Yeah. For every piece. it doesn't have to be a cornerstone piece like this.
Right.
You know, you're not going to have so many people searching for electrician photos. Like that's going to be very, very, very long tail. You don't need this to
Yeah.
be extremely complicated.
It doesn't need to be overly optimized. You
Right.
just like done. What do they say? Done is better than perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And in this
But
case, I
also,
mean, it's actually probably a really good result. If I were to say, you know, Melbourne electrician photos, that post might already show up, you know?
yeah. Well, that garden one, which I did last week, within 3 hours was showing up in position 5 on Google for the name of the garden. So it was underneath like the government department photos and then or links, pages. And then, so yeah, same day, page 1 result if someone searched for
this one
it.
Google was thinking I mean something else. So you know, the whole point is there's lots of long tail keywords like this that it's not, you don't have to go overboard with SEO. You just write it the way that you're normally, like if you document it and you tell the story or you say what it is, that's usually good enough for Google on these kinds of more abstract or less trafficked kind of terms.
And I think you and I talked about a few months ago in one of the chats that we had about embedding your blog post stuff throughout your website.
Yep.
So not just having it as the blog. So if you scroll back up to the top and you click on portfolio, so next, and then personal branding. So if you scroll down, so I've got some highlights, some feature galleries, but I've actually got the blog posts embedded. So there's some, they're kind of more general. And then underneath my pricing is some of my most recent sessions. There it is. And that links back to those blog posts.
Right.
And for that particular search term, which I only created that page in February, and I'm now in like position 3 or 4.
Wow. Yeah, this is a nice cornerstone page. I like the fact that this is answering all the kinds of questions I would expect. I mean, I'm not reading it, but I assume by the scrolling that it's there. I like the.
And what I've actually done, because I've got this pivot. So my homepage says family photographer, but you know, I'm actually thinking, initially I thought I'd like to do 50-50, like family and commercial. I'm actually now thinking maybe even up to as much as 80% commercial.
Right.
But I'm not ready to flip it yet. So I have got like those portfolio cornerstone pages where it's got, you know, everything like a homepage, but 4 headshots, 4 branding. Yep. And just this week, I actually did some new business cards because the old ones said lifestyle family. And the new ones have got headshot photographer on one side with a QR code to the headshot page.
Yep.
And the reverse says personal branding with the QR code.
Yep.
So that I can direct them straight to that stuff and not confuse them with all the family.
Man, I love that. That's so cool. That's such a practical way to use your website. You set up the page that you wanted people to go to, and you can easily make a QR code that goes specifically to that page. Just being able to give people those links. Same with these blog posts. I mean, just there's so many things like what you've been talking about, sharing them in local groups and things like that. Like it just makes so much more sense whenever I can go to this blog and I can see, oh, you've got a lot of things that are local and interesting, and you're not like when you go post in a local group and you seem to have like some really clear commercial intent where you're like trying to book people and sell, people are turned off by that in a lot of those kinds of groups. But whenever you're posting things like this, it's not like you're not trying to sell them anything. You're like, no, literally, I just want you to see this really interesting thing in our community. Now, of course, you know, at the end you might mention, you know, your your portfolio, or the other one you mentioned, like hire a photographer or whatever. That's not salesy at all. That's just what you do, right? That's on your site. But these kinds of posts can so easily fly in those like community groups because they are community driven.
And I think too, having like these posts when you get an inquiry or, you know, you're chatting to someone, like I went to a business networking lunch yesterday, just, you know, to get out of my home office, and they were talking about an upcoming community festival and that they've got funding and they've gotten government funding to run it. And I said, oh, are you going to need imagery as part of your, you know, feedback when you report back on the project? And she's like, yeah, probably. And I said, well, look, I did that for another community festival last year. I've got the blog post, so I'll shoot you across the post and the gallery. So I will use that. Or when people say, oh, I'd like to do newborn, but I don't know how outdoor newborn photo, how does that work?
Right.
And I'm like, let me send you some links. Yeah. And at the moment, I've got one that's about, I learned about soft proofing probably 6 months ago and what that actually means. So I did a whole blog post on it. So I now send that to any client that starts talking to me about wall art. I'm like, let me send you this link. It's got sliders in it that show you the paper characteristics and how I can help you make sure that, so it's showing that expertise.
Yeah.
I've got the typical what to wear guides, or if they say I've got a kid that's got extra needs, I'm like, let me send you, I'll send you some links when I get off the phone.
Right.
So I constantly am like sending out this stuff.
So many resources here and so many different things. Like it's you've done a lot of work on the site.
It's been a rabbit hole, and I blame you and Dylan.
Yeah.
I started listening to the podcast 2 years ago, and I was initially, and you guys know this because we've talked about it, I was on Pixie Set.
Yeah.
And then I quickly, because I knew nothing, like I didn't know how to set up a website 2.5 years ago.
Yep.
And then I migrated at the 1st of August last year to show it.
Yep.
So I had to manually pull across 40 odd blog posts.
Yeah.
And I've been adding a lot more since then. But yes, I do often have people say there's a lot of information, but it's good because I don't have to send long-winded emails in response to questions. I'm like, here's a link. And then obviously that's driving traffic to your site.
Yeah, exactly. You gave the example earlier of someone who booked
I love, Corey, that we said we were going to do 15 minutes.
I know.
We've gone down the rabbit hole again, haven't we?
Yeah. You said, the person booked you because they saw the bakery and they were like, that would be a great place for a session. Can you think of any other specific examples of the type of content that you're creating through these collaborations, how it has either A, brought you business, or B, any other stories of opportunities or anything interesting that we haven't already discussed?
Yeah, so that community festival that I photographed last spring, which was like October here, because my spring is your fall, and I wore my branded T-shirt at that festival, and they had signage up saying this is the official event photographer. If you see her and you don't want to be in photos, keep a wide berth. And as I was photographing, I sort of said to people, if I was getting good images of their kids doing something cute, I'm like, feel free to reach out to me, like photograph the back of my shirt, shoot me a message, remind me who you are, and I'll send you the image. And I got some really cute photos of a little boy. They had a butterfly tent, and he had the butterfly on his hand, and he was all blurred in the background. And it was the dad that was there, and he reached out that week and he's like, hey, I met you in the butterfly tent. How did those photos turn out? Or, I think he'd seen them maybe on the blog post. So I sent him the gallery and said, download them. They've now booked a family session with me.
Okay.
So just, again, that day, which I did get paid for that event, it was reduced rates. And the other thing, because you were asking about, doing it for free and the perception of it, I now will invoice if it's planned. Like if I just rock up at a business and I'm like, hi, can I come in and take photos? Obviously I don't invoice, but if it's a community event or the opening of something where I've had that pre-communication, I send them an invoice of, event photography, 2 hours times my hourly rate. And then the discount is the full fee. And I put in the bottom, I'm pleased to support your new venture.
Right. Give them some idea of how much it would normally cost so that they know what they're getting, what value they're getting out of that.
And I think they appreciate that when they can be like, wow, 2 hours of event photography, this would normally be $800. Right. But she's doing it, just as a good thing. And then that combined with that non-disclosure clause. So if they are talking to people and people say, hey, we saw the photos, how much is that?
Yep.
Even though they didn't pay it, they can say, oh, this is her fee.
Right. Yeah, that's actually really smart. I like that. That's a good tip for anyone who is considering doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd hoped that I'd be able to get some sort of like tax write-off for, particularly when I was doing it, because I've done some things for nonprofits.
Right.
It turns out here, if it was like an album, like a physical thing that I paid for, I could claim that as a tax deduction. My service and expertise, I can't claim anything.
Yeah.
But still, by sending an invoice with either the full value and what we've negotiated, and I mean that community event that I did last year, what they were able to pay me was like 20% of my regular fee, but I still invoice the full amount and then put the discount.
Right.
So that they know and they appreciate that it's that is my job and that this is the value. And I think that also then helps with them being more motivated to advocate for your brand.
Yeah.
And be that like brand ambassador.
I like it. Let's see if there's anybody live.
I don't think we're getting any questions. Well, I can't see any questions.
None are coming through. Yeah, if you have any questions or comments or anything, ideas about collaborations that you've done, any stories you want to tell us in the comments, feel free to do so. Basically, we just kind of hanging out today. We started doing these calls on Friday afternoons, and we'll continue to try to do this, by the way. And we haven't announced it officially because there are going to be some times where we're not going to be able to make it, and we haven't like set a schedule, but we're trying to at least be like somewhat consistent so that we do have some people who know to come check it out. And Kate's one of those who was like, I was expecting you to be live today. You've been live every week.
I got up at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
Exactly.
I mean, I actually have really bad insomnia, so I'd only slept 3.5 hours, and I was up at 4 o'clock anyway. And I was like, I'll do some editing and stuff while I listen to you and Dylan. But instead, I'm talking to you rather than.
And you know what? We should take this. It's been fun, kind of like having just a casual conversation about this. But I would like to maybe even extend it into a podcast one day if you'd be interested. I think this could be a really good topic people would love, and some people will find this one, especially it goes on to the YouTube Live archive, so people will still find it. But
I actually just created like a little marketing plan this month. Let me grab it. Hang on.
Tanya says, I've done some collabs with vendors that have the same ideal client. Actually bought me some decent traffic. Yeah, that's actually, we had a comment here. Tanya does some collabs as well. Oh, you got your marketing plan?
This is like my little to-do list. You probably can't see it with the flare, but I laminated it so I can tick things off each month. That's cool. And the bottom one is pitch to one podcast.
Okay.
So now I can tick that off.
Email me. I mean, this counts, but definitely send me something because we can get it on the calendar. Dylan and I will look and see, like often whenever one of us is out of town. We've actually talked about, he did a guest interview recently and I did one a few before, like sometime. And it's like, well, we might start bringing in some guests to kind of fill in those weeks whenever we're not both available at the same time.
That was the one with the Icelandic wedding photographer. And I think, was that her and Dylan?
Yes, that was.
Yeah. See, I went down that rabbit hole. I'm still listening to everything. But I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Like bring different people. But I've got a media kit. It's not as updated because it's still all my family stuff. That's on my to-do list. To add a bit more of this like collaboration, branding stuff. But I'll flick it to you. But I would love to connect.
Cool.
So you know who I have just connected with that I'm actually going to hire to do some mentoring with is Gary Pope Jr., who is a member of the group.
Yeah.
He's the geeky wedding photographer. And I've actually just reached out to Gary and said, I had my hyper niche for my family work, but I'm struggling a little bit with my branding.
Yeah.
You know, can we hook up and see if I can get his take on that? So I love when I get to talk to people in the States, and not a lot of photographers here in Australia go hard on SEO.
Yeah. There's some like in every, since like we said, the population is focused around the big cities. It's tricky. I've worked with some people in Australia, and it's like if you're in Sydney and you're trying to rank for Sydney wedding photographer, it's like oh my goodness, that's going to be so difficult. But there's always opportunities, like what you're doing exactly. Like find these other things that you can write about, blog about, use your website. This is SEO as well. Even though it's not like a lot of people think of SEO, they're thinking about adding alt text and writing titles and doing speed optimization. I'm like, sure, that's part of it. But for me, when I think of SEO, I think, who is it that is currently doing online searches that I want to get in front of? What kinds of things are they searching for? And how can I give them what they went to Google to find whenever they did that search? Like, that's SEO. That's all there is to it. It's like, think of the people who you want to reach. Now, think about the things that they might go to Google for. Now, do you have any interest, experience, or expertise on any of those things? If so, you should write about that, because that's how you get in front of those people who are searching. And I mean, obviously there are the really straightforward kind of keywords for your city and putting it in the title and that kind of thing. And that does, I will say, it's funny because a lot of people, that's what they teach when they teach SEO or SEO for photographers. And I'm like, it does work for some people. Like, there's some markets where you could just go and write Columbia family photographer in the title of your page, and you're going to rank on the first page for something that actually has search volume, and like, you're going to get, that's going to be really, really good for your business. But there's so many markets now where that's just not the case. It's like, it's not that simple to just do the very basics that almost everyone knows how to do now. You can easily go to YouTube or Google or anywhere and find like some instructions on the very basics of SEO. But then, like, going past that, it's about getting creative. It's about doing tests. It's about understanding who searchers are and what kind of information searchers want to find, and creating that information in a way that is not only accurate and fast and simple, but also like delightful to use. So that's one of the things I like about the posts that you've been making. I think that they're easy to scroll. There's something that pretty much anyone can skim and look at the photos, or read your short paragraphs between the photos, and like, that's just that's good. I like that. I'm actually
I obviously
starting
also link between them as well. I'm like, once you're done with the bakery, check out this playground.
Exactly.
So it is sort of like that, guiding them, trying to keep them on the website.
It's funny because I'm starting a brand new blog just about random Pokemon stuff, which is so nerdy. Like, I don't know why I'm writing about Pokemon now, but
if you like ever renew your vows, you'll have to have Gary as your wedding photographer.
Yeah, exactly.
Geeky wedding
sort of Pokemon thing. But I'm starting a blog there, and it's interesting to me because I just want to write some stuff. Like, I don't care about SEO. I mean, certainly as an SEO, I'm going to be thinking about, are there some terms that are related to the things that I'm writing about that people are actively searching for, where I can get in front of them? Of course, I'm going to think about that stuff, and I'm going to probably do that stuff. But also, if I just want to write something about, how I'm pricing certain cards in my collection, or how I'm storing them in my binder, or whatever I'm doing that I think is interesting. There's a streaming platform called Whatnot, and I'm like, there's the games that people play, and I'm like, I'm going to write a blog post that's like a summary of a popular game on Whatnot, and then like do a series of them so that people who are streaming have ideas of like what games they should play on stream. Like, that kind of stuff is just, it's fun, right? I can just like screenshot it. It's just kind of like social media, but it's a blog. And I think that I would love to see more people who like insert their personalities and their interests into their website. It doesn't have to get like super, like, I don't think that I would put Pokemon stuff on my wedding photography website. And I think you've done a really good job of making it like community focused, where you do have like, hey, I'm a citizen of this area, and these are my adventures and opinions in this area. Like, that works really well. Different people will have different levels of like personality and personal that they want to bring to it. But like, whenever blogging for photographers was like first really taking off, you had people, I don't know if you ever, had you ever heard of Caitlin James? She was a wedding photographer who was a big blogger, and like, there was Jasmine Star, and there was like a few others that were literally blogging 3 to 5 times a week. And it was a lot of times just like the stuff that they're doing as a photographer and learning how to be a photographer.
They have that certain coach that we've talked about before.
Yeah.
That says you have to blog through. Yeah, it was that coach.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't remember where I was going with that, except for to say, I love that SEO doesn't have to be technical, but it isn't that
Right.
it's easy either, right? It's SEO is a creative thing. It's something where you are essentially, I almost have started thinking about SEO as like the same way I would think about a social media platform. Like there's an audience out there, they're using this product, which is Google, which is a search engine. As things like ChatGPT have come out and even like Threads, it's starting to just change how I think about the way that we interact with information and each other. And just, I hope that permeates into blogs for people, and that SEO it's going to have to change. It's evolving into the way that we put things out there. It's not so rigid. It's not like things need to be labeled with keywords exactly. It's like, you just have to understand why people would use a search. Why would people use a chatbot? Why would people use a voice search? Like whatever it is, why would they do it? What was their mindset? What were they trying to find? Now, can you give them what they wanted on your website in a format that fits however they were searching? If you can do that, you can do SEO. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
But that's an art. That's not a science. That's not like a technical thing. It's like really being intuitive and understanding what the search product is. It's a tool.
And it's just, I think it's practice. Like you said, I've got a lot of stuff on my site, and a lot of that early stuff from like 2021, I don't think it ranks on Google at all.
Right.
You know, back then, I really had no idea.
Yep.
I was just writing stuff I wanted to say. Whereas now I've got that on-site technical knowledge, stuff to know about the heading, the H1, the H2, the alt text, the meta description.
Right.
So I can just it's like when you learn how to shoot in manual, and you're not even thinking anymore about ISO versus shutter speed. You just do it. So now when I sit down to do a blog post, I'm not having to think about the technical. Right. It's automatic. And now, like that garden post that I did last week, I wasn't thinking about the optimizing. I just did it, and it went to position 5 on Google.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure the images will come up in image search.
Yep.
And I'm now beginning to get people contacting me to do backlinks.
Yeah, you're gaining an intuition about what kind of format, what you want to give to people who would be searching for this. Like, and that, whenever you get that, it's just easier. It's so much easier to like sit down and write something without worrying about like the headache of SEO, and just like, oh no, I want to share this. How can I share it so that people find it? That's all there is to it, really. It sounds easier.
It's like you've got to get over the hump of the technical, and then it just can become more like you're writing in a journal. Like you're writing in your journal at the end of the day, and you're not having to think about ticking off all those technical bits. Yeah.
Anyone else in the chat? I know Tanya said she does some
vendor collabs.
With
is she a wedding photographer? Do we know?
I'm not sure. Let us know if you're still in the chat. Let us know about like which posts have done well, or like what kinds of collaborations have worked for you. Anyone else have any thoughts they want to? Kate, what's your website? Here, I'll share it again so that everybody can see and get the address. Oh, I'm in a different tab now. Let me move this back over here, and here we go.
So Tanya's portraits.
Okay, that killed my comments. Now I can't see them anymore. That's all right. Anyway, so katecashinphotography.com.au is the site. And definitely check out the blog to get some. I mean, this is really great inspiration for the type of work that I would love to see more photographers posting, this kind of thing where it's just genuine stories of things that are local, things, connections they've made. And it can be a lot of other things too. You get creative with it, but this is a great example of, I think, a great balance between that sort of, you're a guide, but also you tie it back into photography, like the electrician photos. It's like, this is something you're technically optimizing for. If anyone's an electrician searching for headshots, they might be able to find that. Or the Etsy store photos, you did this work for this.
That was pretty deliberate.
Exactly. Like being able to optimize.
If you click on it, like she does crocheted bespoke baby blankets, and I was like, how am I like going to get some juice for this? And I'm like, well, Etsy store maybe.
Yeah. And have you got any? Is it ranked or gotten any traffic? I mean, that's pretty recent still, but
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I feel like that might be a topic that deserves more of a like my guess for the intent behind this is that Etsy store owners want to learn how to take better photos for themselves.
yeah,
That's my guess, but I might be wrong
Yeah.
on that. I'm sure there are certain ones, especially for people with products they can like they're making lots of. They might send them into a photographer via mail and have them photographed, but I feel like the intent behind that might be kind of how do I do this?
potentially.
It's hard to say, but yeah. Anyway, the whole point being, the stuff that you're posting is very much. It all feels like it fits with the fact that you're a photographer, that you do headshots and some business sort of work like that. Showing all of this is really building your portfolio. You're showing people like, here's real examples of how I would do this. And whenever they find it, which they can find organically because it's being shared in the community, they can find it through Google. When they find these things, they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. If they're in the market for that kind of thing, you're definitely marketing yourself for that.
The other way that I use this as well, so I don't know, I haven't run the stats lately, but I would say probably 75% of my family clients are not from the Dandenongs area. They're from Melbourne, which is like an hour away. Yep. So often at the end of a session, I'll be like, so what are you guys doing for the rest of the day? And they're like, well, what are your suggestions? And I'm like, I'll send you like, there's this bakery, there's this cool playground, there's this new garden. I'll send you the links, and jump in the car and have a look. So I use it even as that add-on value with my clients, or sometimes before a session, they'll be like, what else can we do for the day, before or after? So it's valuable in that sense as well.
Yeah. Tanya says, photograph newborns. I interviewed a doula, in ICU nurse, breast milk jewelry maker, a few others. Yeah, that's really cool. What's your website, Tanya? I want to look at that. You have that up still. These kinds of. I'm surprised that I don't see more photographers publishing this kind of thing. I think more photographers are doing it. I do think a lot of photographers do collaborations. I think a lot of them share it socially, and I don't think a lot of them blog about it. So I would love to see more of that. And Kate, thanks for having a Tanya. Okay. Just leave it in the comments. I won't pull it up live, and we'll look at it later.
I think too, like styled shoots aren't as big of a thing here. And sense. Like I see how you have like these shootouts now where like all the photographers get together and go out and photograph something, and it's not as big here. So for me, this is just a way to have interaction with other business owners sometimes, because it there's not that same boots on the ground community here. There's online, but it's just a nice way to just get out and chat to people sometimes. Oh, she's put her website up.
I'm not going to pull it up. I said I wouldn't pull it up on stream. I do want to go ahead and wrap up. Kate, thanks for having a great example here and being willing to share it. And we will follow up with potentially, we'll see if we can come up with an outline for a good podcast episode. I think that would be really fun. And then we will be able to summarize it on the site, and we can get you a backlink for that. That would be
awesome.
Fun, right?
All about the backlinks these days. And I can tick off one more thing on my wall chart.
Exactly.
Winning, and it's only 7:13 a.m. in the morning.
Well, I hope you have a great day, and thanks for joining. I'm going to stick around for a minute here and just give a couple of updates about our membership. But Kate, thanks for being here, and I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Are you going to close out so I'm off the screen? Because I don't know what this platform is that we're on.
How about this? I'll be able to take you off the screen, and then I think you just close it from there.
Awesome.
All right. So I did want to give a quick update about our membership. I'm not going to say a whole lot of like an official update here, but I want to let people know to check this out if you haven't seen it yet. Go to viewyourphotos.com/membership. right now I'm trying to remake this landing page a little bit to really help people understand what it is that we're offering, because I've seen a lot of people post in the group lately asking about hiring someone for SEO or looking for recommendations. And I want to let people know what it is that we're doing in here, because I don't think the page really does a great job of outlining everything that's here. We were selling just a course for a long time, and the course is still available, still a cornerstone piece of our membership, but there's also a lot more to it right now. Let me make sure that the link is up here in case anybody needs it. But right now we have the course library, which is not just the regular course anymore. We also have a blogging course, a content course that goes into writing content that is specific. A lot of the things that we talked about today, and when you're not doing something that is so like community driven, and you want to do something that's more like when we were saying, maybe you want to rank for Etsy photos, and you might need something that's a little bit more of a guide, something authoritative that can rank for a very competitive term like that. There's a certain kind of structure that we follow for the research that we do. And also this course covers a lot about, if you don't know what to blog about at all, a lot of like where to get your ideas and how to do the research to find a content calendar. So get your content calendar, do the right kinds of research and formatting for the post, get it published and ready to share, and some tips on sharing and tracking. That's what that course is all about. And then our SEO course is kind of our flagship course that just has it starts at the very basics of SEO. If you don't know anything about SEO, the first lesson talks about sort of the high level view of why SEO, what SEO is, and what are the big factors that influence ranking. And then it gets into some specific like task-based, some assignments. I think there's an outline here of some of the things, like for example, optimize your homepage. That lesson alone is great. It's helped so many people who have taken this course like completely change their site and get more traffic from search just by following the things that are in here. There's a whole right now. There's a backlink section of the course it has a couple of pieces that are like mini courses. We're going to be doing some reorganization of the course library, but the idea is we're going to continue to add more and more content around SEO. I probably shouldn't even tease this yet. There will probably be a backlink course coming. There's some really cool stuff that we're going to be putting into the course library. The community, we took it off Facebook, and we have it's now in a circle community. I'll open this up just so you can kind of see what it looks like. But in here, it's just another space. It's sort of like a Facebook group, but we've just taken it off of Facebook. Let me get back to where I was here. But also something that's a little bit hidden in here, the office hours calls. Lately, I've been doing 3 days a week where I'm going live. This call that we're doing on Fridays was meant to sort of be a little bit of a preview for office hours. It's sort of like this, but it's in a group chat. So like Kate got to come on today, but in the office hours, 3 days a week, I'm there for an hour, and we just talk about strategies, about things that people are stuck on. We're doing a lot of help with websites. If you're building on WordPress, especially with Cadence right now, trying to dedicate 1 day a week to helping people with website builders and WordPress and switching to WordPress. And Kate, it's not that everyone needs to do it, but we just found that we have a lot of people who are doing it, and it's really nice to have someone who you can go to and just ask the questions whenever it gets confusing, instead of banging your head against the wall for 10 hours trying to find it. So anyway, the point is the office hours we are doing, I'm not sure that it'll always be 3 days a week, but for the foreseeable future, I'm going to continue to do multiple days a week because it's just to me, this is one of the core values of joining the membership. The idea is that if you're thinking you might get stuck on something with SEO, if you just need that accountability, there's people who are showing up once a week. There's a couple of people who show up multiple days a week. And a lot of times it'll be, hey, I did this thing that we talked about. What do you think about this? And we'll talk about it. And the people in the group will give some feedback and they'll make an adjustment. They'll come back next week and we'll look at it again. There's other people who I give an assignment and then they come back a week later and tell me if they finished the assignment. You could go through the content course and it'll be like the workshop that we've been doing, where you could just do a lesson in the content course, then come back the next week and check in. And you basically are doing it self-paced and having the accountability and coaching. Oh man, I don't think people quite understand what's in here and how much help you can get right now. So take advantage of this. Our price is going to be going up at some point, and I just think anyone who's interested in that kind of thing definitely needs to check this out. I don't usually do a lot of selling in our group. I mean, obviously we do post things like when we're opening things back up or changing things around, but I've always been the kind of person who's like, oh, I don't want to tell people about this all the time. I just want to give free value. But I'm just right now, I feel so good about what we have in the membership. I haven't even mentioned the WordPress template. So we also have, if you're starting on Cadence, we have a Cadence child theme, and it's a blank canvas theme and a community driven cloud library. I am basically, whenever people need a new section, I'm adding that section to the cloud library, and everyone in our community can use it for free. So you can basically, if you're using Cadence, you have tons of blocks and sections that you can just go into the cloud library, insert them into your site for the types of, like, for example, this past week, I haven't got this in the library yet, but it's coming in a couple of days. This past week, we were talking about tables of contents in one of our office hours calls. And we were talking about the regular, like Cadence Blocks has a table of contents that just builds a table of contents based on the headers, which is great. But then we were talking about visual tables of contents, which are like thumbnails that take you to different sections. And we went over several different sites that were using them. And we talked about how to design it if you were going to use it on your site. One of the people who shows up regularly had already implemented it from the week before when we were talking about that. And anyways, now I'm going to basically make that block and put it into the library. So for other people who are making a blog post that needs this thumbnail based table of contents, they can just insert it from the library. And that's sort of the idea, is that as we build, like right now we have the like that build your perfect homepage, the starter template that's in the library right now uses a lot of the sections that we mentioned in that lesson. And as we build out more SEO strategies, we'll try to give pieces of templates that make sense. So it's just an extra benefit if you're using WordPress. We always talk about loving WordPress so much, so we've thought, why don't we give people even more reasons to check this platform out and give it a real try in a modern way. So anyway, the course library, the community, and office hours. By the way, the community, one other thing I'll mention here, we're doing a content thread. We used to do this in the public group, but now we're doing it here in the members only community. And it's every month you can post any piece of content that you've posted within the last 30 days. As long as you comment on 2 other people's posts. So you could post 3 or 4 if you blog very regularly, but you have to go back and give feedback to 2 other people if you're going to post again. The feedback that people are giving is so good. It is the best I've seen in this sort of group exercise where you're doing like some sort of blog thread. It's not the typical like, yeah, that was nice, good job. It's like, I was looking at this and I was thinking about, like, they're like really analyzing. People are putting a lot of time into it, and I really appreciate those people. So that kind of thing, I just haven't found it anywhere else. And I love that we have some people who are serious about their content strategy, and that they're coming back regularly and not only getting feedback, but giving really good feedback to other members. I love that. That's one of my favorite things in the membership. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. I just wanted to let people know. I felt like I'm not telling people what we're offering. Probably need to clip this piece of the video and post it again somewhere. But right now it is $4.99 for the first year. It's $2.49 if you decide to renew. Don't let this be like, don't do it. We've had people who didn't want to join because now it's a subscription. We're doing annual because if you want to just pay the $500 and use what we have in here for a year, you're going to get so much out of that if you feel like it's time to kind of like, you don't really want to be part of an SEO community and you just want to like, you got what you needed and you're ready to go, well, then certainly you can cancel. There will be no hard feelings from us. We want you to get your value. And then if you're done, we don't want you to keep paying us. But there are some people who just kind of wanted more of a regular updated, like they wanted, if I was going to get back in and like make this full time, for sure, I'm getting in there every day. We're doing office hours. We're helping people in the community. It had to be something where the people who want to stick around and do that for multiple years have the ability to pay us for that. And I think that this price is very fair for what you're able to get for that. But again, it's not meant to be like this kind of gotcha subscription or whatever. If you want to do it for a year, you can do that. But we are going to raise this price a little bit at the end of this month. We haven't 100% nailed it. We'll probably add a different package that has some coaching in it. So people who are interested in that, let us know if that's something you would want to get. We can even probably set it up for you right now. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking about this. I'm so glad we got to have a conversation about collaborations with Kate today. Kate, thank you again for joining. And to everyone else, let me make sure I don't have any. I turned off my chat. Okay, don't have any comments here. So to everyone else, thanks for stopping in, and I will see you next time.